Hi, I'm Murph from the Wombats, and I'm here chatting with Milky.
Firstly, congratulations on such a great body of work with Fix Yourself, Not the World. I mean, it's such a great title and song. You guys also kind of really push the boundaries sonically on this one and kind of weave in some new genres. What prompted that new exploration of sound?
Honestly, it kind of happened pretty organically. There were songs that 45% of it was written pre-pandemic out here in LA, and then the rest during it. And the first song was Ready for the High, and it had this great kind of trumpet melody idea, and we knew we were going to put real brass on there, and we were like, well, how many other songs can we shove that into? And then there was this kind of David Bowie, just David thing happening, and then there was this LCD sound system Brooklyn vibe happening in a couple of songs, and it was just kind of our job to notice that was happening and to kind of bring it to the forefront as much as possible. So there was no big sit down about all that happening. It just happened, and we noticed it and dragged it out.
Yeah, it's so awesome to play into that. Because like you said, the album, I mean, you guys started a few of the songs before the pandemic, but also recorded during the pandemic, kind of from, was it LA, Oslo, and London, I believe?
A couple of songs were LA, Oslo, London, and then the rest were LA, London.
Yeah, crazy. Well, I mean, obviously it was a new way of working for you guys, but what was fondest memory you had working that way, and how do you think that it's equipped you with new skills when it comes to creating in the future?
I really loved it. It was great because I was working 9 to 5 with a producer, with an engineer down in Highland Park. I was just by myself. I was home to feed the kids at a reasonable time, and although it was madness, I really enjoyed it. The most challenging aspect was afterwards, trying to put it all together and hearing all these things that you didn't know were happening. We would, the first, it took 8 weeks to record, say. In the first week we were really good. We'd get on Zoom their evening, my morning, and talk about what we were going to do and changes, and if there was any creative debates or anything that needed to happen, we would do it. But then after a week, the Zooms got smaller and smaller until they just stopped, and everyone was on different parts of different songs. And then when we first heard it all together, it was there's a lot of I remember thinking there's a lot of random shit happening there. And so we had to kind of press delete on a lot of things.
Conceptually, you guys always bring some great introspection, and at least I personally think this album kind of has an overarching journey to acceptance of yourself and the events of life. I'm sure the pandemic probably did influence some of that content, but what did prompt that conceptual exploration?
I mean, the title is obviously kind of heavily related to events over the last 3-4 years. But what has prompted it is just my own kind of inner journey, I guess. To me, the album is a slightly more positive one than the first 3, at least. To me, it's more to do with the realization that there is much more utility in being positive and optimistic than there is in cynicism and negativity. And it's that was something that I realized, and it obviously found its way into the songs I was writing. And it's just something I've come to the realization of and kind of truly believe at the moment.
So lovely. Now, I also love the video gamey, pixel digital world that's being created within the visual identity by E-Boy, which is super awesome collective. How do you approach settling on the visual identity for each record?
Well, trying to pick out what is the overarching theme and talking about that with the artist, whether it's Storm Thorgerson or a friend or whoever, and trying to get that overarching theme into the artwork, I guess. Weirdly, for this one, I don't know if that is the overarching theme. With the album title and with what I had in my head, it was this metropolis that I wanted to present, and I also wanted to present it as apolitical as physically possible. I've always loved E-Boy, and we couldn't afford Damien Hirst, so
love it. So awesome. Like I said, it's so great. So, it's almost 20 years since the band formed, 13 years since your debut album came out. How do you, looking back, how do you think the way you approach creating a record has evolved?
I just think, I think we're getting better at it, and there's still a way to go. we're more confident. We're happy taking like left turns, right turns, U-turns. Like, I just feel like we're maybe a bit more creative, and also like personally for me, first 2 albums is like, I want to be massive, let's have a hit, let's do all this stuff. Whereas now I kind of don't want those peaks and troughs. I just want the Wombats to be, I want us to be a Pixies, not a Kings of Leon. That makes sense. Right. Easily like, oh, that's the Wombats there, and just keep doing what we're good at, adopting some kind of bulldog mentality, which we have done, and just keep going.
So which 3 songs off Fix Yourself, Not the World would you play to someone to make them like an instant diehard fan if they'd like never heard a song from the Wombats?
Well, This Car Drives All By Itself is probably my favourite on the album.
Yeah, same.
I think Worry is a good balance of like old... I
think that one too.
No, thank you. Of like old classic Wombats vibes, but taking it in a different direction and maybe Ready for the High, because it's pretty kind of grungy, but then suddenly turns into like a swung kind of Blur Universal style place, which is quite odd. Maybe those 3.
Those are actually the 3 I chose, and then like my 4th standby was Method to the Madness.
Right, I was between that, yeah.
And so which like line or lyric from the album are you most proud of, or one that you hope like people can connect with the most?
I think kind of This Car Drives All By Itself, like the lyrics in that I'm really proud of. And someone said to me, we row but the universe steers. And I was like, that thought just stayed with me for a long time, and I was trying to find a slightly more updated way of saying that, and that's where This Car Drives All By Itself comes from. And there's a common theme about letting go and accepting you're not in control of everything in the album, and I feel like that song does it the best.
Yeah, for sure. And so you guys will be hitting the road next year and coming back to Australia, which is so exciting. What can audiences expect from this run of shows, especially after like little to no live music for, I think it's like 19 months now, 20 months?
Yeah, well, hopefully it's different enough to be interesting, but it's going to be kind of a Wombats gig, isn't it? I mean, hopefully people just go apeshit. And I feel like people are, I mean, I saw it in the flesh at Reading and Leeds in the UK. People are definitely ready to go apeshit. So
yeah, for sure. And so what impact do you think live music has had on your career, and how important is it to you in terms of making that in-person connection with audiences who relate to your music?
I mean, live music is outrageously important to us. It's even more important to us now for boring reasons, but just the opportunity to make that connection with a crowd, or make that connection with an individual by performing live to them, like that's what gets people hooked, and that's why we're hooked on doing it. So yeah, it has been very important, and I hope we can get back to doing it again. Yeah, all my influences, I don't think I sound anything like that, but Elliott Smith would be a huge one. Radiohead, Smashing Pumpkins. Elliott Smith, either or. The next Christopher Nolan film. Well, actually, the first song I learned to sing was probably like Thriller or something. The first concert I ever went to was Radiohead.
Oh,
in Warrington, 2001. I'd done more gigs than I had been to concerts for some reason. Yeah. It was a bit strange. Neil Young at Glastonbury should probably be the #1 choice there, but honestly, I saw Korn and fucking loved it.
Yeah.
It was in some kind of strange Scandinavian festival in a forest, I think, and it was the album that Skrillex produced, and I just like remember just thinking, wow, this is mad and fun.
So awesome.
Sad Spice.
Love it.
Sydney Opera House was memorable, but mainly because I was in a suit that didn't fit me very well. I mean, Wembley Arena on the last album was awesome. It's quite a few, yeah. Jesus, that's a hard question. Maybe if I don't have to give a reason, I'll say David Byrne. Honestly, just keep doing what you're doing, because what you're doing seems to be working both internally and externally. So just kind of try not to veer off of that path. I'm not sure I've had that realization yet.